Let me know if you guys can see the shared screen.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So I got the wrong chapter up. I need to go back to bed. It's chapter 12. It should be chapter 13. Okay, let's go back through this laborious. Trying to keep you guys here an extra week. Chapter 13. That's what we're looking at today. Chapter 12 is a chapter that you did not have any questions for. Okay, here we go. It's going a little bit quicker this time. Perfect. All righty. Are you able to see part 5, important issues for entrepreneurs? Yes, no? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So let's take a look at chapter 13. And we're going to talk about an exit plan or harvest plan. That's where you've gotten the company or the operations to a certain point, and now you're ready to exit it in terms of managing it. And you're either going to hand it over to a buyer. You might also think about, we talked about succession planning in a business, and especially if you have a family business, you want to talk about, which family member is going to take on the business once the current leaders are not part of the business. So we're going to look at the steps for selling a business. So you want to make sure that you, just like if you're selling your home, you want to make sure that you get it into shape and, take care of repairs and things like that before you actually sell it, because you want it to be as attractive as possible when you sell it. And we're going to talk about how to turn around your business if it's in decline, and how issues impact you closing a business when it's time to do so. So questions to ask yourself is, why consider an exit plan now? So you should always consider an exit plan, because you're not going to run the business forever. You're either going to sell it, someone else is going to take over, or you're going to you know retire from it. So think about an exit plan and what that looks like. And we are going to focus on valuation, which is preparing it for sale, looking for buyers, and negotiating the sales aspect. All right, so let's go. So why should you consider exit plan or harvest plan now? So this is very important, because even though it's sounds simple and basic, it's very real. Is that early stage entrepreneurs, if you are a new entrepreneur, you need a well-defined exit plan before personality and clashes arise. If you have different people running the companies, each of the business leaders might have different ideas about the direction of the company, and this is where the personality clashes arise. So when that happens, you don't want the business to suffer because you have internal things going on with the leadership. We see that a lot in family-owned business. There are internal family issues happening in the business, and it affects the operations, the customers, and so forth. You don't want that to happen. You want to make sure that you plan for that. That is a threat. When we talked about the SWOT analysis earlier in the course, the T stands for threat. SWOT is, of course, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The T stands for threats. So clashes are threats to the business operations. So you want to make sure that you're planning for that. So how do you perform an accurate valuation of a business? Uh, you have insight into the into the business. And insight looks like you looking at other businesses in your industry, right? You have done that over the past few weeks in terms of looking at industry businesses in your industry, because that's how you found out that that code that you assign to different businesses and how they operate and what issues they have and so forth. This insight allows you to obtain loans. So when you're trying to get a loan, and I'll bring up Shark Tank again because I think it has a lot to do with the things that we're learning in this class is that they're looking for investments, and an investment may look like a loan, right? It could look like equity, in that I have a share or a stake in the business as opposed to a loan. It could be a combination of both, and it allows you to evaluate potential offers to buy the business, because if you don't have accurate valuation, how do you know if what you're being offered is the right price for the business? And it's a true starting point to benchmark um, where you want to start in terms of selling the business or exiting the business. So when should you consider an exit or harvest plan? The business is successful, but it's no longer interesting or enjoyable. And that applies to life in general. If you're in a career that it's very stressful, it's no longer enjoyable, it may be time to think about a different career or doing something different. So many people during COVID had pivoted to pursuing their lifelong dream as opposed to um, just punching a clock every day to go to work. Um, so if it's no longer interesting or enjoyable, that's a consideration. Or other opportunities are available. You might say, hey, I've run this business for X amount of years, but there are other opportunities that I think are more, interesting for me, more in line with where I want to go. And the future, we're experiencing right now a very volatile economy in terms of businesses. Um, in this part of the world, there are a lot of layoffs happening in businesses. Major corporations are laying off employees. Corporations like Amazon, um, McDonald's, and I haven't been as up to date as I should be, but these are a couple companies I've heard of. These are global companies that are laying off people. And a lot of times, what you'll see is that there are mergers happening, at least I believe with Amazon, in that you have duplication of resources. So you got to lay people off because you have one job, and now you have these two companies with these two jobs merging into one job. So you just need that one person. So these are reasons why you're considering an exit or harvest plan. And it might be strategic in that you plan that if the economy gets really rough, let's just sell this business instead of trying to hold out. Okay. So steps for selling your business. Develop some sense of what the true value of the business is. And a lot of that value will come from the customers that you have and how you engage them and the products and services you offer to them. So you develop a true sense of the value of the business, then you prepare the business to be sold, and then you negotiate and sell the business. So those are the steps, and we'll look at them individually. So valuation um, is if you have a public company, um, the value is the starting point in the negotiation. So if you have a public company, obviously you have shares, and you have X amount of shares, and you multiply that by the share value, and then you get the value of the company. Okay. So this is what the market bears. If you're trying to sell it above what the market bears, it's a matter of negotiation. So it's like when you're selling a home and all the homes in the neighborhood are this price, and then you're trying to sell your home for a higher price. That comes with negotiation. It could come down to individual aspects of the business that warrant a higher evaluation. If you're I have a private firm, which when you are an entrepreneur, you are a private firm, at least in the beginning. So there are different issues that are involved. And I see a lot of activity in the in WhatsApp. Can someone look over there and see if there's anything that I need to address? I can't address it right now. Can someone just look over there and see
Um,
is there any yes.
yeah, Professor. So it's basically, I think there is some event. I don't know exactly what event is that, but that is happening on LinkedIn. But we have a conflict with this. So they
Yeah.
actually planned it between 10 to
Yes.
11, but we have a class right now. So I don't think we can join there.
Yes. And I did say that. I did mention that to Amir that we do have class. I think they have two, I think this week and next week. So yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So all new businesses are private firms and there are perquisites as opposed to prerequisites. Perquisites are allows you to minimize the taxes. So if you're paying perquisites is the same as a benefit. So it's a fancy word for benefits. So when you sign on with a company, you get a salary plus you get benefits, which can include vacations. You might have a business vehicle, a loan, gift, financial contribution to retirement plans, and so on. We talked about some of this last time. So these are benefits paid for by the company. So this is what you you can minimize your tax. So if you have fewer taxes, it means the company appears to be worth less than it's worth to the entrepreneur. So it's going to look like it's worth this amount to me, but you have fewer taxes, so it's worth less. So valuing a private firm, let's take a look at the different valuation methods. So these are common methods here that we'll take a look at. Um, Discounted future net cash flow, price over earnings valuation, asset valuation, capitalization of earnings valuation, and market estimation of valuation. And we'll look at it. There's no single method that is this is the way to go. It has a lot to do with the type of business you're in, how long you've been in business, are you private or public, and other factors. So we'll go over all of these methodologies. The best person to determine it is a CPA or a business attorney. So it's not unless you have that specific skill set in your organization, in your leadership, you do need to get outside professional experience to help you do this. And that means that it's also objective. And I revert to when people sell their homes and they make changes to it, it becomes very personal and emotional, and they might ascribe a certain value to the home that another person may not because they're not emotionally invested. So that's why you want someone objective to come in and say, this is what the business is worth. So discounted future net cash flow is what we'll look at first. Um, and you might see DFN as the acronym. It's the most widely accepted method of valuation, and it looks at a floor valuation. So you look at your cash flow 5 years into the future and add a salvage value. So salvage is what, if you were to scrap everything, what would this be worth? Okay, and you've seen this word salvage. You see it a lot with when people sell off car parts. Like if the car is no longer operable and you're just selling the parts, you're just really selling the parts, you're salvaging the parts. Okay. When you have these estimates, you should have a list of assumptions on which they're based. So let's take a look. So you want to discount it by some rate to account for risk, because if you're thinking about cash flow in the future, you don't know what that cash flow will truly be like 5 years from now. You can estimate it, but you don't know. There are lots of threats. This is where the threats in your SWOT analysis comes in. Threats are things that you don't have any control over. Legislation, the economy, weather, things like that. Um, so the rule of thumb is 30% as a discount. So if it's a dollar, let's say I'm saying in 5 years I'll have a dollar. Um, we're saying that in 5 years a dollar is going to be worth 70 cents. So it's a 30% discount. You're discounting the future. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at how you would do that. So we got calculation of present value, PV, of the net cash flow, NCF. So you have, if you remember the cash flow statement, we're looking at 5 years. In the first year, we have that figure in brackets, 101,875, because it's a negative cash flow. You're in startup mode. You're not generating any revenue, any income during that time. So you have a negative cash flow, which is you take account for. All right. So you have that 30%. So you divide it by 1.3, that's 30%. That's for the first year, plus the second year, divided by 1.3 squared, plus the third year, 1.3 cubed, and so forth. So that's how you arrive at that number. All right. And then we have the second one, the same starting negative cash flow, and there's a 30% discount. And then in the first year, the second year, it's about double, and so forth and so on. And then we come up with a figure of valuation for the present value of that future cash flow. Let's take a look at price over earnings valuation. So this is where you're a public company and you're looking at the price divided by your earnings, and it's a ratio. And you have to compare apples to apples. You have to compare your business to a similar business in the same industry. Okay. So you get the average, which is a P over E, and you multiply it by the net cash flow for year 5 and discount it back as a sales price in year 6 of the venture. So at 30%, the discount rate should be 1.3 to the 6, which is 4.827. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So we look at the price over earnings ratio is 10. So it means that what you're worth 10 times more than what you're earning. So it's obtained from industry sources, and the net cash flow is for year 5 is $446,300. Discount rate is 30%, and then you're multiplying that by the PE, and then you divide it by the 1.3 to the 6. That's year 6. That's the discounted sales price, and then once you divide that by that 4.827, you get the present value of that year 6 valuation. So that's the price over earning ratio valuation. The other valuation method is simple, is asset valuation. You're just really adding up all the assets that you have in the organization, and you're saying the total of those assets is the price of the value of the company. And we're talking about hard assets such as buildings, and there's a depreciation, excuse me, there's a depreciation aspect of it. So the hard assets, and there's a goodwill value. Okay. So the goodwill is the value by looking at the percentage premium that you are being offered on all new public acquisitions. So if the company is performing poorly, there's no goodwill value. So if you're performing well, the optics is that this is a good company. This company is going to be around for a while, and there's a value ascribed to that. Okay. The asset valuation is the lowest business valuation number that you will calculate. So it works best for firms with hard assets. Let's take a look at that. So we have a building as a hard asset. So we're saying the market value, so that's what the market will bear. It's not what you think it is what the market will bear. So we have equipment, another hard asset. We have that value. We have furniture, another hard asset. We have cash or marketable securities. And this is where we look at we looked at long-term assets and liabilities. This is short-term. So you can liquidate it in a short amount of time. we have cash, marketable securities at that value, and then the total asset value is 199,941, and then the acquisition premium, you multiply by that 4.3, which is again what the market bears, and then you get the valuation for the company. Again, that number can vary based on negotiating with the potential buyers, because they might see some aspect of the business that they ascribe a higher value to than you do, or on the other hand, ascribe a lower value to than you do. All right, capitalization of earnings valuation is you're taking the net profit or the earnings of the organization, subtracting from the net profit any unusual items that are not customary, normal, or usual, and dividing that by a capitalization rate. Okay, so the rate is based loosely on the nature of the business. Again, you're going to look at your industry to see what that rate is and an agreed upon number. Let's look at how that pans out. So you got net profit earnings of the company is 32,900, and you have a capitalization rate of 0.2. So you divide it by 0.2, and then you get a valuation of 164,500. One of the things that you should do if you're selling a business is to take a look at, and when I say you, I mean you employing the professionals who do what they do best, to look at the different valuation methods and see which one, first of all, suits your industry. So you're comparing apples to apples, and which of them you're going to gain the highest yield for your business. The last method is a market estimation valuation. And that is where you look at the business, you look at the business earnings and multiplying that by a market premium of companies in your industry. Again, comparing apples to apples. This is the simplest techniques, and it's used for public traded companies for the most part, because we see NASDAQ at the New York Stock Exchange up here. We can use that to estimate the market premium or an industry multiple that can be used to calculate the value of the business. So again, we want to see what the market bears. So if we look at the market estimation, let's say the net earnings of the company is 32,900, the same figure we saw before, we can multiply that by 13, which is the premium that the market or the industry affords, and then you get a valuation of 427,700. So these are the different valuation methods. One of the things, and I'll harken back to Shark Tank, is that whenever there's an entrepreneur or entrepreneurs that are looking for investors from the sharks, they come in with a valuation and they say, we're going to offer you X amount of equity based on that valuation in exchange for you investing X amount of dollars. So they have to come up with a valid valuation, because sometimes I've watched it and sometimes the valuation is like super high. Like, yes, that it doesn't bear out in the market. And in a lot of cases, you find the entrepreneurs have some kind of emotional attachment to something they created, which is normal. You created something from scratch. You have an invention and you know it's going to save the world. And you say, yes, everyone's going to buy this because this is great. But it's got to be based on what the market can bear. Unless that buyer sees it the way you do, and then you have a win. So in terms of the different valuations, you might find that if you look at your company and use all of the methods, you might have a wide range of valuation based on the method, right? So remember, we talked about competitive advantage. This is where you can lean into that to ascribe a higher value to your company, because you have this competitive advantage. You've got something going that no one else is doing. And then you want to be able to sustain that. We've talked about that over the weeks, that you have a competitive advantage, but you want to sustain it, because if you have a competitive advantage in a business, your competitors are looking at you, and pretty soon they're going to have the same competitive advantage. So say, for example, you say, in our business, we uh, we offer free delivery. Let's say we do free delivery, and you got this, you're capturing market share from your competition. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to start offering free delivery. So now your customers now like, well, I have choices. I've set different companies. So you have to maintain and sustain your competitive advantage. And that's why you always have to be fresh and understand what's going on in the market. Do your focus group and your surveys of your customers to find out what it is that they want, and also your employees as well, because your employees have a lot of ideas for growing the business. They're not just there to perform their job, they also have ideas and creativity and innovation that you as an owner, entrepreneur, leader pull out of them so that you can sustain that. So that's the idea of the valuation overview. Any questions about the valuation methods that we talked about? Anyone have any questions about them before we go on to preparing the business for sale? Okay. So if you are preparing your business to sell it, you need to have a transition plan to make the purchase more valuable, so that you're not saying we're going to sell it um, tomorrow, next week. There are things in the business that you might need to correct. There might be debts that need to be paid off, contracts that need to be terminated, renewed, and what have you. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best value for the business, so the purchase is more attractive. Now, in other cases, you might have, we're selling it as is. Like, we know we're selling this car and we know that the bumper is hanging off the car. We know this, and that's why you're getting a great price for this car. So this transition plan, especially if you're doing that, selling it to with, if you have a family business and now you're going to transition and sell it to people other than your family, then there's transition that has to happen within the family to make that possible. Okay. So we talked about operations last week, the week before, I believe, in that you want to make sure that in terms of operating your business, if someone comes in to operate it, it's very simplified and structural. And if you remember, we went through these steps of how to perform certain activities. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. So that has to happen, because there's a knowledge transfer that occurs when you sell your business and someone else comes in to operate the business. That knowledge transfer has to happen. And if I'm an investor, I'm going to look at how easy it is for me and my employees to come into the business and assume operations based on what's communicated about the operations. Are they coded somewhere? Are they simplified? And so forth. So again, you want to have a CPA, certified public accountant, to audit your financial statements, um, standardize your statement format so that it's standardized to the industry, if you will. Um, have accounting procedures in place. Provide the audit of this year's financial statements, um, and get an opinion from the CPA. So, in their opinion, how healthy is this business? How attractive is it in terms of ensuring that procedures are relatively simple and easy to follow? So this is the prep work you do before you sell your business. You want to obtain a professional valuation of your business. It's not, as I said before, what you believe the valuation should be, because in many cases it's very emotional, what you believe, and other people, such as buyers, do not share that emotion or that attachment to the business that you have. Recording all informal practices of the company. So we talked about the procedures, which is like standard operating procedures. So you record all the standard operating procedures, but then there are practices that may not fall into that. Those are exceptions. You also want to record those as well. So the new owners will have that in place, and those are questions that they will ask. They'll ask, okay, so we have the standard operation procedures. Are there any other procedures that do not fit into this? And then you want to have those documented as well. Okay. You want to maximize returns. So if you are a founder, that means you have equity in the business. You want to maximize your returns, your investment. So in a lot of cases, if you have a fire sale, everything must go. You might take a loss or break even, but you want to make sure that you are getting, a fair return. And that might mean that you take longer to sell the business so you can get it in a place where it's attractive to investors, where you have more customers, so you're generating more revenue. So that might mean that you take that time to think of what the optimal time frame is to maximize the returns on the sale. So the best method to exit will depend on the business type. So some businesses are seasonal, some are economy driven. So it depends on what the business is. When should we exit the business? If you have a bakery, for instance, what's a good time to exit the business, to change ownership? Do you want to do it in the busiest season? Probably not. You probably want to do it in downtime, or the slow times in terms of the economy, or in terms of in your market. So if you have a standard business, as I mentioned before, you can look at the industry to see, okay, what is the industry bearing in terms of how I should value my business. And if you're specialized, then it makes it more complicated because you don't have that information from the industry to lean into to arrive at your valuation. So hospital auditing is very specialized, um, and it makes selling it and valuing it more complicated. Where do you get the numbers from? How do you ascribe value to this business that you have? Right. So think about that in specializations. I know that your businesses that you're starting in terms of this class, um, there's some aspects that are specialized. So think about that when you think about specialization and valuation. Remember that this is not part of the presentation, but just to think about it. Um, One of the things that I'm proud that you guys have created this business plan is that as MBA students and graduates, you can take that plan that you created and you can monetize it. There's so many people out there that want to get a loan from a bank or an investor. They are heads down in the business and operations. They don't have the time or the wherewithal to create a business plan. You have gone through the process of looking at everything you need to look at to create a business plan. So it looks like you can actually tweak that plan and monetize it. You can have, as part of we have the gig economy happening. It's not regular 9 to 5. You can say, I can create a business plan for you, and you can actually make money off of that. So part of the reason why I wanted to go into the detail of what to put into the plan, and ensuring that you are covering the details, and ensuring that you are also presenting that, is that I am thinking that you are able to monetize this down the road. It's something in your back pocket. If someone says, hey, I need a business plan, but I don't know where to start, you can raise your hand and say, hey, I can help you out. So think about that. And then if you can also be involved in conversations about valuation in terms of today's topic. Right? So if you're selling a business, you want to sell it intact. You to a third, you can sell it to a third party is one way. So as is, I want to sell it to a third party. You can sell the business to a competitor. So that is a great strategy because your competitor is doing what you're doing. And think about if you have this competitive advantage, they're also purchasing that advantage as well. So you can sell your business to the competition. You see that happening all the time, everywhere, or to a larger business. We spoke about this very early in the class about selling to larger businesses like a Microsoft or what have you. You've created some technology, and then you want that small business to operate inside a bigger business, and that would be like a division or a department. And it's corporate entrepreneurship where you're able to act as an entrepreneur in a larger business who are very large and cumbersome and not as agile as small businesses. So you're taking the best of a small business in terms of agility, innovation, and so forth, and you're plunking it into a larger business who has all the resources necessary to make that idea and make that business a division grow. Um, you could also sell the business because you are divesting portions to maximize the value of the business. I was actually involved in that. The company that I'm consulting with, we are part of the arm of the company is software for higher ed, and that's the student information system is the biggest part of that. So it's one arm of this huge software company. So because the SIS arm was relatively new, cash flow was in the negative for the first few years. What this company did, it divested SIS portion. So now this SIS is standing on its own because it makes the bigger company more attractive. So you don't have negative cash flow in this bigger company. So I've seen that firsthand. I'm sure you have as well, and that maximizes the value of the company because the larger company they are owned by investors. So year after year, investors want to see return on their investment. So you have to think about things to do to maximize value to those business owners. Okay. IPO is an initial public offering. That's where you list your firm as a public entity in the equities market. Okay, that's where you have um, and you see that a lot also on Shark Tank. We're gonna now trade stocks on the New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq or whatever, and this is what the stocks are worth. A lot of times people use that to inflate the value of the business, and in some cases, it may not be the most profitable way to pursue selling the business. So, if you're putting a business up for sale, put the word out. Okay. So how do you put the word out? You hire a business broker. This is something you want to have a third party be involved in. Again, they're going to be objective and not emotionally attached to it as you as a small business owner may be. Okay. You want to contact competitors that have expressed interest in your business. Um, in the housing market here and maybe in your individual countries, we have these corporations that are buying houses. They just buy a bunch of houses and then they in turn sell them. So on a daily basis, I get at least 2 or 3 email, text message from these businesses, and they act like individuals. Like they'll say, "Hi, I'm Sarah, and I was looking at your property." You could tell by the context of the text message it's not an individual. And we're prepared to offer you a cash value right now for that house. So they want to buy low and sell high because that's where the market is going. So that happens all the time. So they're expressing all kind of interest in the home because they know um, they have plans for it. They see down the road. Okay. So let your accountant and your lawyer know. So you, as a business owner, you should have absolutely an accountant and an attorney. So I will call this out in terms of your human resources where you have the different personnel in your organization. Be sure to have an accountant and an attorney. And again, if you are presenting your business plan to an investor, I will feel more secure that you have these professionals in your business. Okay. And also, you want to contact your suppliers and your significant clients that you are putting your business up for sale. Sometimes the suppliers will purchase the business as well. So, um, and sometimes in some cases a client, but you do want to make sure that you let them know that the business is going to be changing hands, so they're not surprised about you know what happens next. Let's take a look at some negotiation strategies when you are selling the business. So again, we talked about supply and demand earlier in the class, and the demand is, so you're the supplier, you're the business, you have a product or a service. The demand is that you have a customer who is willing and able to purchase your good or service. So they're willing at whatever price you ascribe to it. They're willing and able. So the sale is based on the needs and the wants of both parties, right? So it's got to be mutually beneficial. So what to keep in mind when you're negotiating. Use a professional mediator. So you want to, again, let the experts do what they do best. Use a professional to negotiate the sales price. Get to know the buyer, get to know them in terms of their experience, what they plan on doing with the business once they purchase it and so forth. Some companies want to establish, even though they sell it, they want to make sure that that brand is established and ongoing with the new owner. So you want to make sure you know the buyer to ensure that they're going to, they're going to recognize that and they're able to uphold that end of the bargain. Have your own advisors, so not just advisors from the buyer's standpoint. Look at all options for selling the business. That's why I mentioned earlier. Look at the different valuation methods because you might have more options in one than the other. And get cash for the firm. You don't want to sell on credit. So cash in hand today is worth more than cash in the future. So that's why on Shark Tank, they're looking for a cash infusion for the business. So get cash so you're able to have more choices. And look into the details of the sales. Don't just sign off. Make sure you look at all the details and the any type of caveats that are in the sales documents. So let's say that you have a firm that is in decline. So you have your business, and for example, the sales have been declining over a certain period of time, and you want to turn it around. So what you want to do is retrench. So you want to look at gaining control of your cash flow quickly, and the best way to see that the company is in decline is looking at your cash flow. You start off in the negative. We know that because you're in startup mode. But if you're in the negative for an extended amount of time, that does not equate to what businesses in your industry are doing. It's time to retrench. If you come out of negative cash flow into positive, but the positive cash flow is declining over time, it's time to retrench. So you want to manage your cash flow. Okay. So we look at root cause analysis to see what is the issue. Is it operating issues or is it strategic issues? So you want to make sure that you do that. I had mentioned the Ishikawa or the root cause analysis, and it's Ishikawa is like, or the fishbone, all three Ishikawa fishbone root cause is like it actually looks like a fish, and this may come up in your project management class. If you look at the root cause, if you look at the head of the fish, if the head of the fish is bad, then the rest of it. So you're saying the head is bad, so you travel down all the way to the tail to see what's causing the head to be bad. So you want to establish that. Now, once you establish what the root cause is, you can see it's operational or it's strategic. We're not planning or managing or leading this properly, or we're not operating properly. Maybe our hours are not right. Maybe, we're taking too long to make the sandwiches. Maybe we have too many returns. things like that. So you want to examine that so you can turn it around. Okay. And it's important to point out here that you don't just look for this when your business is in decline. You look at this. This is something you should do all the time to see if something is, at the first period where your cash flow declined. You want to look at what caused it, not, when it goes to 3 or 5 periods, what's happening. And then you're always looking to improve your operations and to improve on any strategic endeavors that you're undertaking. So let's look at turnaround options. Let's say you have a brick and mortar, a BAM business. So remodeling is a way to turn the business around, right? So let's say, because when you remodel, it's like a new business, Now we have we took out the carpet. Not sure what you would have carpet in the business, but now we have tile instead of wood or what have you. Or we have more, tables that you can eat. Now you can eat outside as opposed to just inside. So this is a way to help turn around. So there are other options to turn around your business. Let's talk about closing your business. So in this country, we have different ways that you can actually legally close a business. You could file a Chapter 11. So if you have debts less than $2 million, you can take the time to reorganize the business. So it's Chapter 11. Chapter 7 is when you're closing the business, closing the doors. Chapter 12 is if you have a family farming business. And then and these are bankruptcy where you're saying we don't have any funds to run the business anymore, so we got to file these different legal strategies. And then Chapter 13 is used for sole proprietors. Okay. So again, the form of the business, the industry is in, can impact how you decide to close the business. Right? So that is it for this chapter. Let me stop sharing and see if there are any questions on this chapter before we take our break. Anybody have any questions? All righty. Let's so today, before we take our break, we're going to use the time because you don't have to incorporate this into your business plan. We're going to use the time to start your recording or finalizing your presentation or polishing it up, whatever you need to do. So you'll have 2 weeks of taking care of that aspect of your presentation during class time. So let us take our first break. It says 11:10. Let's come back at 11:30, and we'll use the rest of the time. When you come back, I'll advise you. We'll use the time up to maybe half an hour before we close to wrap up and talk about the individual assignments. So let's come back at 11:30. Okay, we are back. Okay, let us go to our rooms, and you have approximately 1 hour to finalize your business plan presentation and whether that looks like finishing the PowerPoint or recording. You decide. Any questions before we adjourn to our rooms? Any questions from anyone? I'm going to open the team rooms and we'll come back here at 12:30 and also send you a reminder as well. All right, looks like we're all back. Before I talk about the individual assignment, and then I'm going to dismiss you for the day, does anyone have any questions about the team activities today? Any questions?
No, Professor, I think we are good. And thank you so much for explaining to Muhammad. I think we all should be good to go now.
Okay, awesome. You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's view the chat. So this week's individual assignment, there are 3 questions. Developing a harvest plan for your planned business. So this is where you're saying, okay, the time has come to either sell it, transfer it, what have you, and talk about how you're going to do that. And you could just use the examples we gave today. Just, if you want to choose one of the valuation methods. Second question is, what are 2 or 3 things that you would want most from a negotiation? So if you are negotiating with a prospective buyer, what are 2 or 3 things? When you go into a negotiation, you have, things that you want out of the negotiation. So what are 2 or 3 that you want? And then the third question is, imagine a worst case scenario. Explain how you have protected your personal assets. So one of the things we talked about in terms of businesses is to have corporations and limited liability so that your personal assets are protected, so that if there is any legal issues or the company's going out of business, economic downturn, your personal assets are protected. So your business is separate from your personal assets. So talk about how you would protect those. That is the individual assignment for this week. And again, as I said, last week's quiz will not count against your grade. So if you haven't taken it, don't worry about it. All right. Any questions about the individual assignment or anything else before we adjourn for the day? Any questions? Going once. Going twice. Oh, is there a question? Yes.
Yes, I forwarded the question, the weeks I omitted in the distance.
Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Going once, twice? All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Easter, Ramadan, and all the Passover, all the stuff that we're celebrating this week and today. And I will see you guys for our final lecture next Sunday. All right. All righty. You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you.
you.
Goodbye,
Sounds good.
Professor.
Thank you, Azad. Thank you. Bye, everyone.